Patricia
Iglesias Peco.
You pronounce perfectly. Yeah. What are you talking about?
Friday Heaters, back at it again. Today we're here with Patricia Iglesias Peco for her show at the Francois Gabali Gallery. Let's heat it up.
This is my first major show with the gallery.
The Francois Gabali Gallery?
Francois Gabali Gallery. And I was working with flowers before, but for this show, I encountered this incredible Uruguayan writer, Marosa de Giorgio, this very dark, unknown poet in Buenos Aires in a tiny bookstore. Very unknown. There was something really raw, visceral, and wild that it speak almost to me, but also I felt that she was talking about my paintings. And then the more that I found out about her, she was very influenced by painters. So she was influenced by the Surrealists. She was influenced by Rousseau. She was influenced by many different artists. So that was kind of like the starting point for these wild flowers that to me, I don't know, they kind of carry that gesture. When I was very young, I started doing sculpture with a very old painter from Argentina. So I started as a sculptor. So the way that I approach the work is very much like sculpture. So it's like by addition and subtraction. So I'm just like taking away material with oil sticks and with brushes. Sometimes they are like, movements with rags. I always like tension in the paintings. I like whether it is through the gesture or through the color. For me, I think that we tend to gravitate towards specific colors that become, kind of like more calm and I like to kind of like sometimes break that with other colors that I consider ugly, because I think that these paintings have that. They are in between the ugliness and I always say like the monstrosity, and they have a lot to do with they're talking about women, and they have that, the beauty and the monstrousness that we have as women.
That's so great.
But
so when you say the ugliness, like, would it be
well? I mean,
not
for me, this
like
color is ugly. There's some colors that are ugly. I mean, that this kind of like sort of skin color against that magenta. There's that kind of like tension, and for me, also the same thing is if everything is very delicate, then I try to do like a gesture that breaks that. And if not, it's through color. If this blue wasn't here, then this painting would have a different sort of, I don't know, this sort of feeling, much more gentle, much more, these colors make sense. And then I break it out with this electric blue that is almost like, I don't know, I think that there's, some of the things are kind of violent. The gesture, it can become violent.
Did you think, how does that develop? I feel like we don't often normally hear artists talk about, pursuing making something ugly, or did that develop over time, or? I think
that I'm fascinated, I think, by this opposition of things, which to me comes also from my mentor, Pablo Edelstein. He always said that things needed to be felt. So, instead of like really working with something very close and very softly, he wanted that gesture, that feeling. We were doing like the live model, and he came. I was 15 then, and he came towards me, and I was very timid with the pencil, and I was scared. And he said, "Forget about the paper. Forget about it. Just look at what you have in front and just feel it. Feel the gesture." And for me, that is how I paint. I never forget about that thing of like that feeling. Don't hesitate. And I think that I have it in the brushstroke. It has to be felt. I think that when I see, I'm very interested in children's and outsider artists' works, because it's the pure feeling. They don't doubt. I mean, if you see a child painting, when they paint, they just know exactly what colors they are going to put, and it's no doubt. And I think that, as we age and as we go through like art schools, so we lose that. So, for me, it's about getting back into that pure primal feeling, even though there is, before each painting, there is like a little bit of like, a study. So I don't do I don't do actually studies in terms of like little sketches. I don't do sketches.
Yeah.
But I do start with, for me, what moves me is the color. So I start with like, I call them my little recipes. So I have like little dots of colors that I think that will work and also that will set off the painting.
Yeah, yeah.
Given the story, like for me, these ones were like also about Marosa and this, in her poems, there's throughout the whole work, she talks about these women child, the Señora Niña. It was a little bit about that. And that, I think that given certain poetries, then I know what palette I'm going to use. I also use, it's all about wet on wet. And I have like a limited time to be able to work on the paintings.
And so for those that are less familiar, like wet on wet just means?
Wet on wet means, so I mix the paint, I mix the oil paint with I add oil so that it becomes really, really liquidy and fluid. And so I put it on top of the canvas and then I don't wait for it to dry. So I go with another color and I move. So it's a lot about moving the paint. And I use a lot of, as I said, oil sticks, like these ones, which are like crayons, but oil-based.
Yeah.
And, the medium will be active, which active medium means that it will really never totally dry.
Okay.
So I shouldn't be doing this, but I will.
Ooh.
No one saw it. No one.
That's a heaters first. See, you can't get that. You can't get that anywhere else unless you're with the artist. That's a historic moment.
We're gonna get voted.
So
you want to come to. So this is for me. This is kind of like more of the soft.
Yeah.
I hang the show, and for me it needed to be in this particular way because to me the way that the paintings live among each other have also a lot to do in which the way that I have chosen the colors, right? So this is the frenzy room. The colors here are really shouting and they're in your face. They're about to get out from the paintings.
Yeah, I mean, I feel it in my eyes. Even, I think as we've done this over the years, my eyes get better at just absorbing and letting the art do its thing. Whereas I think historically it's been like, okay, what is, work your brain.
No. It's about, for me, it has to be about feeling. We were talking before about why I think that certain people gravitate, or children gravitate towards my work. And I think that is because they find themselves seeing something that they would do, like maybe the gesture and maybe the bright colors.
Yeah.
I am, someone was telling me, you're not afraid of colors. I think that I am fascinated by colors and I also am fascinated by medium itself. For me, it is, that is also the process, right? Like for me, what guides me is the color, right? It's not the shape. So, the shape appears because for me, a certain color needs to be then this size.
Yeah.
And again, like they are in motion. They are flowers that are wild and they are not up, they are trying to be uprooted. They are not on earth.
Yeah.
Right.
So then I noticed this too, we've talked about how there's the pursuit of ugliness at times, but yet the final product ends up being this, I would assume for most of us, we feel this beauty and whimsy and imagination of it. How does that show up then?
I think that there's whimsy and there's joy, even though obviously they don't come from a joyful place. I think that they're pursuing, they're looking towards joy. It's funny because I don't see them as beautiful. I don't see them as beautiful at all.
Interesting.
At all. I see them as raw, like to me they needed to be out there. They needed to exist. These colors needed to be combined to create this certain thing that is happening in each painting.
Yeah.
It's almost like you're guided by something when you're painting. I cannot listen to any music. For me, it's a very personal thing. I can, it's like, I don't know. I always related it to having sex. I cannot, no one should be watching. No one can be watching. To me, it's the same thing. It's a very, very intimate process.
Yeah.
And a lot of thinking. Which is sometimes it's not the same when I do sculpture. It's very different.
So when you don't see these as beautiful, what is it okay then for you, the artist? Sometimes I'm like, oh, then maybe I should feel that way too because that's what you intended.
No. I think that, so there are two things. I am much more interested in the interpretation of people with my work. Sometimes I really hate talking about the work because it's almost like, I don't know, it's like telling like a magic trick. I think that,
Sure.
And I love when people come to the studio and they're like, so is this finished? And I like that. I like that the paintings could be finished, could be not finished. There's room for that.
Yeah.
Often, actually, in the paintings, things go out and things come in. Nothing is ended. Nothing has ended. I like that people get to decide what they like, whether they like it. I know that there's a lot of people that hate them, and that is fine too, of course. But they are very sincere in the sense of like, this is how I paint, and this is, these are the colors that, this is a fuck you pink. This is a really crazy pink. Again, it helped me to tell this story, and then, I have moments in which I get really almost obsessive about the gesture and take out a lot of material, and there's that frenzy, and then there's places in which the oil becomes much more, fluid and liquid. And I think that also Marosa Di Giorgio's poems made me also think about that fluidity. Nothing is very defined, and I love that. I love that.
You're removing the paint as well, so we see kind of paint on top of itself, but then there's the...
So then there's a gesture of usually the oil stick, and with the oil stick, I'm taking away that color that I put it on top. So then there's the color that I put on top, then there's the base color, and in some places it's more, more visible because of the gesture and because of the color, for example, that I am putting on top. I'm using a green oil stick, then you can see that vibration with the pink, which, they're the opposite, so it makes each color be more crazy and more vibrant. And then whatever color I left on top. So there's like all this craziness I feel happening with the paint, but it almost makes me want to bite it. I love paint. I really love paint.
Yeah.
And it's, that's the thing. It's like there's a joyful part about getting dirty, and I think that everyone should at some point paint.
Again, the average person might come in and see like, oh, some plants and flowers, and that's pretty good, but it's like, what is the story behind and the process and all of, even knowing you, it's like I hadn't known that story. And so when you talk about the energy and it's more of this body response than it is planning out how to draw some of these shapes and...
Yeah, to me, I mean, it doesn't interest me to paint something exactly as it is. For me, this is the way that these certain flowers are, the paint, it's helping me to portray it. But to me, it's all about color, and to me, it's all about the medium. It's where, for me, I find the most sense. As I said, I can tell you so much, but there's layers in the sense of like, what people can feel, and then sometimes it's a disappointing to know much about the painting. Sometimes I find that they lose the, I don't know, that magic. And then on other times I have known what the artist intended to, and then I end up understanding or admiring the painting more. Here is another great example of a awful color, this awful yellow.
I kind of like it, I mean, it's challenging.
But it's an ugly beautiful, because that's the thing, it's like, it's ugly beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in that. I'm interested in that tension. So for me, I think that we all can do beautiful paintings if we intend it. There's also like, I feel formulas. There's, like when you study specific palettes, and but I like to see how color also challenges me, because the minute that I put a color that I feel uncomfortable with, then it's, I'm searching. I need to resolve. I need to resolve what's happening, what other color will go, how that color will behave, because colors don't exist by themselves. They exist by what they have next to it. Because I don't work with a classic palette, it's more challenging in that sense. When you put the color, it will react in a way that sometimes you don't expect it.
Yeah. just in terms of some of the shapes that end up in the finished image, where do those shapes come from for you? Are you thinking? I mean, I see this and I think of like plants and flowers and maybe some figuration, but are you thinking that, or is that again just the reaction to the color process?
I think it's the reaction to the color process. I think that sometimes I reuse certain images, but I think that it has a lot to do with what I was telling you about the color guiding the shape. And then, you know, where I want the gesture to be more, I don't know, rough or, you know, then that shape occurs.
Yeah. You're standing here, so it's easier for me to imagine you, and I like feel your
and it's very
body
physical, you know, it's like, it is to me, there's something really about like that movement. And I think that because there's no plan per se, in the sense of like, I don't sketch, that's why I think that I cannot have music, because there's no, you know, everything is happening in the moment.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of decisions that I need to take while I'm doing it.
Like no music in the background. Yeah. I'm wondering too, as it seems like it's this flow process for you, what ends up being the hardest part? What's where you might hit a wall or have to kind of like grit through something?
Well, I mean, sometimes when I start the paintings, I start them with a base color, and you know, some base colors are easier than others.
Yeah.
And sometimes I really go for it, and I challenge myself possibly too much. And sometimes there is a lot of anguish until I resolve, you know, what in my mind they need to be resolved. But I think that to me has a lot to do with when is a painting finished. You know it. It's like, you know it. Your body knows it, right? And in the same way that I know when a painting is resolved. And sometimes, you know, like I have left the studio crying because I haven't been able to resolve the painting, and then sometimes I leave time and I go back, and then I hope, you know, hopefully I know how to resolve it. And to me, usually those paintings are, as an artist, the ones that work the most.
Yeah.
I had this green one it started as a different painting. And for me, this one is one of my favorite ones. To me, it works. For me, it's the best one painterly wise.
Yeah.
Like the way that I moved everything, and I was having the worst time with this painting. And then all of a sudden I decided to put a color, which is a yellow, that was completely out of, because I was like, it's already fucked. You know what? Great. And sometimes that's
great.
The most liberating, when a painting starts by kind of like being where you know where you're going, then it kind of like, and then when it's getting more difficult and you kind of like give up, and then you have that freedom of like, well, you know what, fuck it, this painting is not working anyway, so let's just go for it with all. And I think that that's what happened to this painting. So for me, this one is the most successful one, you know, in my mind.
Yeah.
That usually and I've seen this, like what artists like, usually people don't. You know?
You have some of that battle of trying to, I don't know.
No, there was a battle. There was definitely a battle, and I think that you can see it.
And so you end up with a lot, and then somewhere
I take
in there,
it started. It was this color.
Yeah.
The whole painting was that kind of bluish color.
Yeah.
So yes, sometimes it's so great when they don't work, because then you have that freedom.
Yeah.
Of going that extra, you know, of going to the end.
Yeah.
And then bringing it back.
Yeah.
And there's something that you bring back that is so interesting, much more interesting. It's like when you go through things in life, right?
Yeah.
You don't stay there. You just go to hell and you come back.
Yeah.
And sometimes you come back better.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
with knowledge.
Yeah. Or you see the limit, and then that helps give you the
Absolutely.
feedback of like, okay, that
Absolutely.
Now I know to do.
Yeah.
Whew, heaters. Got heaters all over the place here. So are you excited about this show? I mean, has it? I feel like it's been.
I am excited in the sense that I always say I left my soul here. So there's nothing that I could have done better or different. They're very sincere paintings. So I am content in that sense. Like I gave it my all. So I think that in that sense I am,
Yeah.
I'm grateful, and I'm grateful to be able to show, because I for a long time I didn't show. I don't have a very linear career. I don't have a master's. I haven't done residencies. It's a different. But I think that we all have our own ways of experiencing art, and the only thing that I did was I never stopped painting.
Yeah.
So throughout all of
There you
that,
go.
and I always say, like this is fantastic, but this is circumstantial.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm gonna always be a painter, no matter if I'm hung in a gallery or not.
Yeah.
So that's something that I think everyone, all artists should have in their minds, and I think that it's difficult. It's difficult to keep on sometimes when you. I don't know if it's about rejection. I think that usually you relate it to being hung in a gallery to successful or success. I don't necessarily see it in that way, because did it mean that I was a worse artist before, or that now I'm a better artist, or does it mean that people that are not shown are not good artists? It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
Do you? I feel like there has been, for the audience out there, like there's. I'll say it. I mean, there's been a ton of buzz about your paintings, this show. I think from what I've known, people have been really excited about it. It's done really well. Do you feel like people are excited about what you just described in the art, or are they reacting to something different?
I mean, I think that there's both. I think that there's something. I think that there's excitement about usually the underdog. I'm 50, and this is later in life, and then I think that people connect with the joyfulness that the paintings have. That's what I think that it is. I think that they also feel like a child could have done it, and I say it in the most incredible. For me, it's a
reverence.
It's a and children love it, and I love that children love the paintings. For me, it's like a super gift.
It's kind of like the best part, the best critic.
Yeah. They are. They are. I have my nephew always looking at the paintings and telling me, and they see things that I have never intended, and I love that. I love that they can see things that are beyond what we as artists intended to. I think that that's great.
Yeah, thank you. That was so good. Oh, it's so good every time. It just totally opens my brain to all of this work in a whole different way.
I would say sometimes it's for the worst.
Well, yes, but I don't know. I don't. You're right, but I do. Whether I'm biased, I do think this is an example of it adds.